It began with a sound that ripped through the smoky air, a sound of pure, primal fury. The tiger, a magnificent beast of orange and black, lunged not away from the fire, but directly toward the small, terrified child. A collective gasp of horror rose from the small group of firefighters who had just broken through the tree line. They saw the inevitable conclusion written in teeth and claws. They saw the tragic end of an impossible story. The little girl, Lily, let out a heart-wrenching scream, her hands flying up to cover her face. Her father, John, screamed her name, a raw, desperate cry of a man watching his entire world about to be devoured by the monster he had foolishly trusted. The tiger's muscles coiled, a flawless engine of destruction, and for a terrifying second, it seemed to hang in the air, suspended between instinct and action. What happened in the next moment was not what anyone expected. It was something that would leave every witness speechless, their minds struggling to process the unbelievable truth of what they had just seen. To understand that shocking act, you have to go back to the beginning. Back to a cold, rainy night and the arrival of a tiny, shivering creature at the gates of the Haven Wildlife Sanctuary. The sanctuary was a quiet place, a sprawling acreage of rolling hills and gentle woods tucked away from the noise of the world. It was John's life work, a refuge for animals that were broken, abandoned, or simply had nowhere else to go. He ran it with a small, dedicated team and the help of his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, who had grown up with the soft nicker of horses and the gentle lowing of rescued cattle as her lullaby. That night, the delivery was unusual. It was a small crate, brought in by a grim-faced ranger from the national park. Inside, nestled in a dirty blanket, was a tiger cub no bigger than a house cat. Its eyes were barely open, and it trembled with a profound, soul-deep cold. Poachers had taken its mother. The cub was alone, orphaned, and fading fast. John and his team worked tirelessly, feeding the tiny creature with a dropper, wrapping it in heated blankets. But the cub refused to thrive. It lacked a warmth that no blanket could provide, the warmth of a mother. It was on the third night, as John sat with his head in his hands, fearing the worst, that a strange and beautiful idea came to him. He thought of Serenity. Serenity was a magnificent Clydesdale mare, a gentle giant with feathers of white hair around her massive hooves and a coat the color of polished mahogany. She was the soul of the sanctuary, a calming presence for every animal she met. But she was also nursing a deep grief. A month prior, she had lost her foal to a sudden illness, and a profound sadness had settled over her, dimming the light in her intelligent, brown eyes. With a heart full of hope and trepidation, John carried the tiny, whimpering cub to Serenity's stable. He placed the small bundle of fur in the fresh hay near the great horse. Serenity, who had been standing listlessly, turned her massive head. Her ears twitched. She lowered her head, her nostrils flaring as she took in the strange scent. John held his breath. The mare took a slow step forward, her hooves silent in the thick bedding. She nudged the cub gently with her soft muzzle. The cub, feeling the touch, let out a tiny, mewling cry. And then, the miracle happened. A deep, maternal rumble started in Serenity's chest. She lay down, a slow, careful folding of her powerful legs, an act of immense vulnerability. She nudged the cub again, guiding it toward the warmth of her belly. The tiny tiger, driven by an instinct older than time, burrowed against her, seeking comfort and life. From that day forward, they were inseparable. The cub, whom Lily named Khan, grew strong under the watchful eye of his unconventional mother. He would sleep curled between her forelegs, his tiny striped body a stark contrast to her solid, earthy brown. Serenity would groom him with her lips, her gentle nudges a constant source of reassurance. As Khan grew, the sanctuary staff watched in amazement. The horse was teaching the tiger. She taught him patience, nudging him away when he played too roughly. She taught him a strange sort of gentleness. He never used his claws on her. His playful pounces were soft, his nips were toothless. He learned the language of horses, the flick of an ear, the swish of a tail, the soft nicker of greeting. Lily became the third member of their impossible family. She was fearless. While adults watched with a mixture of awe and anxiety, the little girl would sit in the paddock, leaning against Serenity's side, while a young, growing tiger slept with his head in her lap. She would braid flowers into Serenity's mane, and Khan would bat playfully at the dangling blossoms. John knew it was a risk. He received letters, warnings from wildlife experts. "You're creating a ticking time bomb," one wrote. "Instinct will always win," said another. But John saw something else. He saw a bond forged in shared grief and profound love. He saw a predator whose instincts were being shaped and tempered by the unwavering gentleness of a creature of peace. Khan grew into a breathtaking animal. His muscles rippled under his striped coat. His paws were the size of dinner plates. His low rumbles could shake the ground. Yet, his eyes, when they looked at Serenity or Lily, held a softness that defied his nature. He never left Serenity's side. He would walk with her to the pasture, a silent, striped shadow to her massive form. He would stand guard while she grazed, his head held high, his gaze sweeping the horizon. He was her protector, her son. The peace of their world was shattered by the arrival of a man named Markham. Markham was from the state's Fish and Wildlife Department, a man with a crisp uniform and an even crisper, colder view of the world. He saw animals as data points, liabilities, and potential threats. He arrived at the sanctuary with a clipboard and a condescending smile. "I've heard the reports, John," he said, his eyes scanning the paddock where Khan lay peacefully beside the grazing mare. "It's an impressive, if deeply misguided, experiment." John's jaw tightened. "It's not an experiment, Markham. It's his family." Markham laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. "That is a 200-kilogram Amur tiger. It doesn't have a family. It has a prey drive and a list of potential victims. Right now, that horse and your daughter are at the top of that list." The words were a physical blow. John had heard the whispers, the doubts, but Markham gave them a voice of cold, bureaucratic authority. Over the next few weeks, Markham became a constant, unwelcome presence. He documented everything. He filmed Khan yawning, labeling it a threat display. He noted Khan's protective stance beside Lily as resource guarding. He saw only the predator, refusing to acknowledge the context. He began to build a case. Official letters started arriving. Concerns were raised about public safety. The sanctuary's license was put under review. Markham's goal was clear. He wanted Khan removed, locked away in a concrete enclosure at a state zoo, for his own good. The threat of separation hung over the sanctuary like a storm cloud. The staff grew tense. John became withdrawn, the weight of the world on his shoulders. He found himself watching Khan with a flicker of Markham's fear in his own heart, a betrayal that shamed him. Could they all be wrong? Was he endangering his own daughter out of foolish sentimentality? The doubt was a poison, seeping into the idyllic world he had built. One afternoon, the confrontation came to a head. Markham arrived with two other rangers, their faces grim. He held an official-looking document. "It's an order for seizure, John. We're taking the tiger." Panic seized John's chest. At that moment, Lily was in the paddock. She was sitting in the grass, showing Khan a picture book. The great tiger was lying on his side, his massive head resting near her tiny feet, his tail giving a slow, lazy thump against the ground. "Stay back," John said, his voice trembling. Markham ignored him, striding toward the fence. "This is exactly the kind of reckless endangerment I'm talking about," he said loudly, for his colleagues to hear. Khan's head lifted. His ears swiveled toward the angry voice. A low rumble started in his chest, not a growl of aggression, but a sound of deep unease. It was a sound Serenity knew well. The great mare stopped grazing and moved to stand over Khan and Lily, placing her massive body between them and the men. Markham scoffed. "Look at that. The animal is agitated. It's time to move." He unlatched the gate and took a step inside. Khan rose to his feet in a single, fluid motion. He didn't snarl. He didn't roar. He simply moved, placing himself directly in front of Lily, his body a living shield of orange and black. He lowered his head and stared at Markham, his yellow eyes unblinking. It was a clear, silent warning. "See? Aggression," Markham shouted, taking another step. "Stop it," Lily cried, her small voice cutting through the tension. She stood up and put her tiny hand on Khan's flank. "He's scared. You're scaring him." The tiger didn't move. He didn't flinch. He remained a statue of protective loyalty. Desperate, John made a call. It was a long shot, a plea to the one man who might be able to make Markham see reason. His name was Arthur Hemlock. Hemlock was a legend, a retired animal behaviorist who had spent 50 years working with the world's most dangerous predators. He was old now, his hands gnarled by arthritis, but his eyes were as sharp as they had ever been. He arrived the next day, not in a uniform, but in a faded flannel shirt and worn boots. He didn't carry a clipboard. He carried a simple wooden stool. He walked to the edge of the paddock, set down his stool, and simply sat. He watched. For hours, he said nothing. He watched as Serenity grazed, and Khan dozed in her shadow. He watched as Lily came and went, treating the tiger with the same casual affection she showed the sanctuary's goats. He watched the subtle interplay between horse and tiger. He saw Khan mirror the mare's posture, a sign of deep deference. He saw the tiger use a soft, chuffing sound, a vocalization of contentment, not aggression. Markham stood nearby, impatient and scowling. "What are you seeing, Arthur?" "I see a predator biding its time." Hemlock finally turned, his gaze piercing. "You see what you want to see, son," he said, his voice raspy with age. "You see a tiger. I see something else entirely." He pointed a shaky finger. "Watch. Watch how he moves around the child. He never turns his back on her, but he also never presents a full frontal challenge. That's not tiger behavior. That's herd behavior. He's treating her like a vulnerable member of his herd." Hemlock continued, his voice gaining strength. "You hear that rumble? You call it a growl. But listen to the pitch. It's the same frequency the mare uses to communicate with him. He's not threatening. He's talking." The old man stood up and walked slowly toward the fence. John held his breath. Hemlock stopped at the fence and made a soft, low sound, a nicker. Serenity's head came up, and she nickered back. Khan, hearing the exchange, looked at Hemlock. He didn't posture. He didn't threaten. He simply watched, his head tilted, a look of calm curiosity in his eyes. "This animal's core instincts haven't been erased," Hemlock explained, his voice full of awe. "They've been translated. That horse didn't just feed him. She raised him. She taught him her laws. The laws of a gentle, peaceful species. He is a tiger in form, but in his heart and mind, he carries the soul of a horse." Markham looked stunned, his certainty beginning to crack. But it wasn't enough. The legal machine was already in motion. A date was set for Khan's removal. A week later, the sky turned a strange, sickly yellow. The air grew thick and hot, carrying the distant, acrid smell of smoke. A wildfire, which had been burning in the national park miles away, had shifted direction, driven by erratic, powerful winds. It was moving toward them. Fast. Panic erupted. The evacuation alarm blared across the sanctuary. Staff ran in every direction, their faces etched with fear, trying to herd animals into trailers, trying to open gates to give others a chance to flee. It was chaos. John's first thought was Lily. He found her near the main house and told her to stay inside, to lock the doors. Then he ran to help with the horses, his heart hammering in his chest. The smoke grew thicker, a choking fog that burned the eyes and lungs. The orange glow on the horizon grew brighter, angrier. The roar of the fire was now a constant, terrifying presence. In the chaos, a burning ember, carried by the wind, landed on the roof of the small hay barn next to the main house. In seconds, it was engulfed in flames. Inside the house, Lily saw the flames through the window. Panic, raw and childlike, overwhelmed her father's instructions. She didn't think of safety. She thought of her family. She ran out the back door, screaming for Serenity, for Khan. John, hearing her cries, turned in horror. He saw her running, a tiny figure against a backdrop of fire and smoke. He started running toward her, but a group of panicked deer burst from the woods, cutting him off. "Lily, go back," he screamed, but his voice was swallowed by the roar. Lily ran toward Serenity's paddock. But the great horse was not the calm soul Lily knew. She was terrified, her eyes wide with fear, galloping frantically along the fence line, her powerful body trembling. She was lost in the primal terror of fire. But Khan was not. As the flames licked at the edge of his enclosure, he was preternaturally calm. He stood, his head high, his nose testing the wind. He saw Lily, alone and terrified. He saw the wall of fire advancing. And he saw Serenity, lost in her panic. With a mighty heave, he slammed his body against the wooden fence. The wood groaned. He hit it again, and again, the sounds of splintering wood lost in the inferno. On the fourth try, the gate burst open. Khan was free. He didn't run away from the fire. He ran toward Lily. By now, a fire truck had managed to navigate the sanctuary's main road. A small team of firefighters, their faces black with soot, saw the scene unfold. They saw the tiger, free and moving with deadly purpose toward the small child. Their training kicked in. They saw a worst-case scenario. "Get the girl," the captain yelled. But they were too far away. John, finally clear of the stampeding animals, saw it too. His heart stopped. Markham, who had arrived to oversee the evacuation, stood frozen, his face a mask of horrified vindication. "I told you," he whispered. "I told you." Lily, seeing Khan running toward her, froze. The world narrowed to the charging tiger and the wall of fire behind him. A massive, burning oak branch, weakened by the heat, cracked loudly overhead. It began to fall, a fiery spear aimed directly at the spot where the little girl stood paralyzed by fear. This was the moment of the lunge. It was not a lunge of aggression. It was a lunge of salvation. Khan launched himself into the air, a blur of muscle and fur. He flew over Lily, his body a protective arc. He collided with the falling, burning branch in midair. There was a sickening thud, a shower of sparks, and a pained roar from the tiger as the branch struck his side. He crashed to the ground, rolling, but immediately scrambled back to his feet. He ignored his own searing pain. He ignored the flames. He went to Lily, who was now crying on the ground where she had fallen. He nudged her gently with his massive head, the same gentle nudge Serenity had given him when he was a cub. He made a low, chuffing sound. It was the sound of reassurance. He nudged her again, urging her to her feet, and then began to guide her away from the fire, his body pressed against hers, shielding her from the heat and falling embers. The firefighters stood in stunned silence. John was openly weeping, tears of terror turning into tears of overwhelming relief and love. Markham's face had gone pale. The clipboard fell from his nerveless fingers. Everything he thought he knew, every regulation he had quoted, every cold certainty he held, had been incinerated in that single, selfless act. He saw not a monster, but a hero. Khan led Lily toward a small creek, a natural firebreak. His side was badly burned, his beautiful coat singed and bloody, but his focus never wavered. He got her to the water's edge and stood over her, a guardian sentinel, as the main front of the fire roared past them. When the firefighters finally reached them, they found a surreal tableau. A little girl, safe and sound, huddled under the watchful gaze of a wounded tiger who refused to leave her side. John ran and scooped his daughter into his arms, burying his face in her hair. "You're safe, you're safe," he repeated like a mantra. Lily, crying, pointed a small finger at the tiger. "Khan saved me, Daddy. The fire tree was falling, and he saved me." The fire captain looked at the massive, burned branch lying exactly where Lily had been standing. He looked at the wounded tiger, who was now licking his burns, his breathing shallow. He took off his helmet and wiped a hand across his soot-stained face, his expression one of profound respect. The aftermath was a strange mix of devastation and wonder. Much of the sanctuary was destroyed, blackened skeletons of trees and buildings standing against the smoky sky. But the story of what happened spread like the fire itself. News crews arrived, filming the scene of the heroic tiger and the child he had saved. The video, captured by a firefighter's helmet cam, went viral. The world saw the lunge, not as an attack, but as the breathtaking rescue it was. Khan was carefully tranquilized and transported to a veterinary hospital, where specialists worked to treat his severe burns. Lily refused to be far from him. She would sit outside his recovery enclosure for hours, talking to him in a soft voice, telling him stories. Serenity, who had been found safe in a far pasture, was brought to him. The moment the great mare saw him, she let out a low, worried nicker. She stood vigil by his side, her calming presence the most powerful medicine he could receive. Markham was there, too. He was a changed man. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a deep, humbling guilt. He approached John, his eyes downcast. "I was wrong," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I was so profoundly, dangerously wrong. That animal, he has more humanity than I do." He tore up the seizure order with his own hands. "I'm going to make this right," he vowed. And he did. Markham became the sanctuary's greatest champion. He used his position to fast-track permits, to secure funding, to cut through the red tape that had once been his weapon. Donations poured in from all over the world, from people touched by the story of the horse, the tiger, and the little girl. The Haven Wildlife Sanctuary was rebuilt, bigger and better than before. New enclosures were built, habitats were restored, and more animals were given a second chance. Weeks later, a small ceremony was held. Khan, his burns healed into silver scars that traced across his side, was officially honored. A special medal, engraved with the words "for unflinching courage and unbreakable loyalty," was hung around his neck by a grateful governor. He tolerated the attention with a quiet dignity, his eyes constantly seeking out serenity and Lily in the crowd. The sanctuary became a symbol of hope, a testament to the idea that love could transcend species, and that heroism was not defined by one's nature, but by one's choices. The epilogue to their story was written in the quiet moments that followed. It was written in the setting sun, which cast long shadows across the rebuilt pastures. It was seen in the image of a little girl, now a little older, riding on the back of a gentle, giant mare, and walking faithfully beside them, his stride matching the horse's pace perfectly, was a magnificent tiger, his scarred flank a permanent reminder of his love. He was Khan, the tiger who was raised by a horse, the predator who learned the language of peace, the monster who became a hero. He would look up at the girl and the horse, his family, and a low, happy rumble would start in his chest. It was not the sound of a tiger. It was the sound of a soul that had found its home. And in the quiet of the evening, that was the only truth that mattered. Their bond, once misunderstood and threatened, was now their legacy. It was a testament to a love so powerful it had rewritten the laws of nature and shocked the world into seeing the truth. Heroes come in all forms, and family is what you make it. The quiet peace that settled over the sanctuary was the ultimate vindication, a lasting monument to their incredible journey. John watched them from the porch of his new home, a gentle smile on his face. He no longer felt fear or doubt. He only felt a profound gratitude for the day a shivering, orphaned cub had been brought to his door, and the day a grieving mare had opened her heart. He knew that what he had witnessed was more than just a strange story. It was a lesson for all of humanity, a lesson about looking past the surface, about challenging prejudice, and about the extraordinary power of a gentle heart. The world had been shocked, it was true, but they had also been changed. And that was the greatest miracle of all. As darkness fell, the three figures became silhouettes against the fading light, an impossible, perfect family, finally at peace, their future as open and beautiful as the starry sky above. They were home.